I now want to address the national political landscape. I've thought long and hard about what I'm going to say to you. And I've come to a stark conclusion. There is simply no other way. This is the only choice. You elected me to Parliament in 2024. The good people of Great Yarmouth elected me. Not for 1 second in Westminster have I forgotten that. I am here to represent you and your priorities. You sent me there to fight for change, not to do things how they've always been done, not to accept more and more relentless decline. You sent me there to try and fix things. And I have tried, I've honestly tried, and it almost got me sent to prison. I've used every tool available to a backbench member of Parliament, and more. Parliamentary questions, committees, motions, speeches, petitions, everything and anything. Sometimes we've succeeded, more often than not, we haven't. The system simply will not shift. But we have tried, and we've tried again, and again, and again. And nothing has shaped my thinking more than our crowd-funded independent inquiry into the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs. An inquiry that should never have had to exist. An inquiry that I created only because the political system itself would not act. That inquiry has been the most sobering experience of my public life. Not just because of the awful crimes, not just because of the horrific suffering, but because of what it exposed about the way this country is governed. Again and again, we heard the same story at our hearings over the last fortnight. Warnings raised, concerns logged, evidence submitted, and then nothing. Nothing happened. Not because people did not know, but because acting would have been difficult, because acting would have caused controversy. It would have inflamed racial tensions. It came with personal and professional risk. It would have meant being labelled an Islamophobe or a racist. So people did nothing. They let the abuse continue all over the country. Even worse, many officials were even involved in the rapes themselves. We must call it what it is. It was, and still is, to this day, the rape of Britain. They can call me Islamophobic, racist, or whatever else. Emily Maitlis did so. Let me be abundantly clear with you tonight. I do not care. I would rather be labelled a racist than to enable rape. Our inquiry will not just talk. We are going to act. A target list is already being made of rapists, police officers, social workers, council officials, politicians, and NHS employees. We will take out private prosecutions and civil litigation. We will be relentless in our pursuit. Our aim is very straightforward: to put people in prison. I reached a point, sitting through evidence, listening to survivors, reading documents that should make every public servant hang their head in shame, and it became impossible to ignore the bigger truth. The problem is not confined to one department. It is not confined to one policy area. It is not confined to one political party. It sweeps through the entire governing culture of this country. A culture of risk avoidance, a culture of reputational management, a culture of endless consultation and permanent deferral, a culture where process matters more than outcome, where responsibility is spread so thin that nobody is ever held accountable. That is why I've come to this conclusion. Britain does not need tinkering, minor reform around the edges, not carefully curated cosmetic changes, just this time with the same failed ministers wearing a turquoise rosette. It needs restoration, full-scale restoration. A restoration of courage, a restoration of responsibility, a restoration of a political culture that exists to serve the public, not simply protect itself. I've tried to work within the system, and I will continue to fight inside Parliament. But I can no longer pretend that the existing political structures are capable of delivering the scale of change this country now needs and at the pace that is now required. The will is simply not there. That is why today I am launching Restore Britain as a national political party. At the next general election, we will put forward hundreds of qualified candidates from outside the existing political establishment. They will not be failed ministers. They will not be politicians. They will be men and women who have succeeded in their own fields and want to deliver a better Britain. This will be an entirely different way of doing politics. Restore Britain will be the national umbrella organisation. And we will work with local parties to deliver local priorities for local people. Great Yarmouth First will be the pilot. Our sister party, based here in Great Yarmouth, focusing purely on implementing local change. We will run a joint ticket at the election, and I will be the candidate here in Great Yarmouth once again. I hope other local political parties will come together and help us to fight for a better Britain. If we can get this right, we can transform British politics forever, forging an entirely new way. I simply could no longer justify asking you to place your faith in a system that has repeatedly shown it cannot or will not fix itself. It needs a serious programme of national restoration, and that's exactly what Restore Britain is being built to deliver. First, immigration. Restore Britain will not manage mass immigration. We will not just stop mass immigration, we will reverse it. Illegal entry will mean detention and removal. Not years later, not after endless legal paralysis, all funding the parasitic legal profession, not after being absorbed into a permanent asylum industry. If you enter this country illegally, a Restore Britain government will remove you within 24 hours of arrival. If you are living in the country illegally, you will be detained and you will be deported. They must all go. This is absolutely non-negotiable. Restore Britain would abolish the entire asylum system. No more asylum seekers. The scam will end. We will round up every third world criminal who has broken into our country, and we will remove them. Without compensation, without delay, without apology. Do that, and the boats will stop overnight. Restore Britain has already published the most comprehensive deportation policy ever produced in Britain. We are now seeking the power to implement it. Legal immigration will almost come to a complete halt. We will close off entire visa routes from countries which are proven to provide us with criminals, sex pests, and illegal migrants. Zero immigration, net zero immigration, is weak, weak, weak. It is insufficient, and it is too late. The barbarians are already in the gates. For the foreseeable future, far more people must leave Britain than arrive. A country simply cannot survive without shared expectations and a shared culture. Language matters, contribution matters, respect for our law matters. All of that matters. If a foreign national is living in Britain and unable to speak English, refuses to work, claims benefits, lives in social housing, hates our way of life, or even wants to do us harm, then they must leave or be made to leave. I make no apologies for this, for saying this. Millions must go. Welfare. We must always protect British people who genuinely cannot work. That is our moral duty. But the current system has completely failed. It is stagnant. It writes people off. It traps people. It teaches too many people that dependency is far safer than ambition. Restore Britain will rebuild welfare around participation, rehabilitation, and expectation. If you can work, you must work. If you can train, you will train. But if you are able and repeatedly refuse to engage, you will lose your benefits. Restore Britain would remove access to benefits for every single foreign national living in Britain. They would lose access to universal credit, social housing, disability benefits, everything. It will all go. If you are a guest in our country, you will support yourself. If you cannot do that, then you must leave. I make no apologies for saying so. Now, to the economy. Because Britain is strangling itself, suffocating, dying, we punish effort. We punish risk-taking. We punish small business. We punish productivity. We punish success. It must all change. We regulate endlessly and then wonder why nothing gets done. Restore Britain will slash taxes on work and enterprise. Income, dividend, corporation, VAT, stamp duty, thresholds for all these must rise, and tax must fall. We will scrap IR35. We will double the VAT threshold. We will burn down the regulatory frameworks that crunch small businesses. We will end the HR culture that paralyzes and blackmails employers. We will restore long-term policy stability, because businesses cannot invest if the rules change every year. Farmers cannot plan if policy shifts with every consultation. Manufacturers cannot expand if planning and energy frameworks remain incoherent. We will back domestic energy production. We will back the reindustrialization of Britain. We will back British farming. This is a national restoration programme, because the deeper problem in Britain is not only financial, it's cultural. We have slowly lost confidence in ourselves as a nation. We've become reluctant to defend the things that used to bind our society together. Restore Britain will be unapologetic about this. Britain is not simply an economic zone. It's not just a collection of institutions. It's not just a legal jurisdiction. It is a nation, a people, a home, our home. With a shared culture, shared history, shared expectations. Restore Britain will openly recognise the Christian heritage that shaped this country's moral and civic foundations. Responsibility, duty, restraint, forgiveness, and most importantly, fairness. These values created a high-trust society. We must support parents as the primary decision-makers in their children's lives. We will protect family life. We will support British men and women to raise their family in a country they are proud to call home. We will restore that high trust culture. We will uphold one legal system, one rule of law, one standard, no parallel justice, no religious exceptions. British law must remain supreme. Restore Britain will end the creeping Islamification of Britain. Halal and kosher slaughter will be banned on British soil. The burqa will be outlawed. And Sharia courts will be made illegal. Unfettered immigration from Islamic countries will end. Britain is a Christian country, and under a Restore Britain government, it will remain a Christian country. We will govern with confidence. We will not apologise for wanting Britain to remain cohesive and to remain British. Restore Britain is not offering you a miracle cure. Our programme is serious and honest. It will require discipline, it will require courage, and it will require, most importantly, patience. And it will require the willingness to accept short-term discomfort in exchange for long-term national restoration. Because it will be painful, difficult decisions will have to be taken. But I will always be honest with you about the extent of the task ahead. But let me end where I began. I'm not pessimistic about Britain. I would not be standing here if I were. This country has the most extraordinary people, the best people on this planet. With incredible skill, decency, and intelligence. What it lacks is the leadership prepared to act for the long term and tell the brutal truth about what we will require in the coming months and years. So today is the beginning of a necessary journey, and I ask you to help build it, to help restore competence, confidence, and national purpose in British politics. Because Britain is our country, it is our people, it is our home. And it is now our collective responsibility to restore it. Thank you.